सभी का महाराष्ट्र प्रदेश कांग्रेस कमेटी की तरफ से बहुत बहुत स्वागत। जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं, आज हमारे बीच पूर्व गृह मंत्री, पूर्व वित्त मंत्री यहाँ उपस्थित है। साथ में महाराष्ट्र प्रदेश कांग्रेस कमेटी के प्रेसिडेंट नाना भाऊ पटोले जी उपस्थित है। मेरे सहकारी डॉक्टर राजू वाघमारे, चारुताई, गणेश जी, शर्मा जी, सभी नेतागण कांग्रेस के आज उपस्थित है। आज महत्वपूर्ण विषय है, 9 साल सरकार के हुए हैं, उपलब्धियां एक भी नहीं है। ऐसी आज देश की अवस्था है। किसान हो, युवा हो, महिला हो, जनता हर चीज से आज परेशान है। मैं आपके भी ज्यादा समय न लेते हुए आदरणीय चिदम्बरम साहब से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि वे आपको संबोधित करें। मैं प्रांताध्यक्ष नाना भाऊ पटोले जी को विनती करता हूँ कि पहले वो आपको संबोधित करें। पहले मराठी हिंदी दोन्ही करतो।
तानाशाह जो राजा आपल्या देशाचा आहे, त्यातील गेले 9 वर्ष पूर्ण झाली आणि या 9 वर्षात या तानाशाह राजाने आपल्याला काय दिलं, आपला देश कुठल्या दिशेला चाललेला आहे, त्याचे 2 मुद्दे घेऊन आपल्याला या ठिकाणी देशाचे माजी गृहमंत्री, वित्तमंत्री पी चिदंबरम साहेब या ठिकाणी आपल्याला प्रेस घ्यायसाठी आलेले आहेत आणि मला विश्वास आहे की 9 मुद्दे जे या ठिकाणी मांडणार आहेत देशाच्या हिताचे मुद्दे आहेत। देश कुठल्या दिशेला चाललेला आहे नेमकं याच्याबद्दलचं वर्णन या 9 मुद्द्यामधून आपल्याला पाहायला मिळणार आहे। त्यामुळे मुद्दे अजून जास्त होऊ शकतात आणि त्याच्यामध्ये हीच 9 मुद्दे आज देशाची वाताहत करतायत आणि नेमकं याच मुद्द्यावर आदरणीय पी चिदंबरम साहेब या ठिकाणी प्रेस करायला आलेले आहेत। त्याच्यामुळे ते तातडीनं या ठिकाणी प्रेस सुरू करतील अशी त्यांना मी विनंती करतो।
Good afternoon to all of you. PCC President Shri Nana Patole, my friend Shri Atul Londe, office bearers of the Maharashtra Pradesh Congress Committee, Mumbai City Committee, friends. I have an opening statement. A copy has been distributed to you. I'm afraid it's only in English, but I suppose in due course the MBCC will translate it into Marathi and give it to you. I will read the statement so that it can be a basis for discussion today, and I'll be very happy to take questions from you. On May 26, 2023, the NDA government under Shri Narendra Modi completed 9 years in office. After being elected in 2014 and re-elected in 2019. The countdown to the next elections in 2024 has begun. From time to time, we have taken stock of the performance of the government. But the start of the 10th year is an important juncture. Let me keep my opening statement pointed and brief. At the end, I shall welcome questions. In my view, the top 5 issues are constitutional governance, defense and security, economy, social conflict and divisions, inflation, unemployment, inequality, and poverty. I have brief comments on each of the 5 issues. Constitutional governance. There is rising concern whether the country is being governed according to the Constitution. The Modi government has spread its assumed legislative footprint into subjects that are the legitimate concerns of the state government. It has curtailed the legislative and executive powers of the state governments. Governors of non-BJP ruled states are acting like viceroys. Parliamentary rules and conventions are violated. Debate in Parliament is becoming rare, and even calls for vote by division on important bills have been brushed aside. Legislation are pushed through without discussion and bypassing scrutiny by parliamentary standing committees. The central government's agencies have been deployed to destabilize state governments through false cases, threats of investigations, and arrests. There is scant respect for the verdict of courts, including the Supreme Court. Institutions that are the independent pillars of a democracy have been weakened or subordinated to serve the ends of the central government. While there is an appearance of a democracy, the tree of democracy has been hollowed out. The aim of these excesses is to bring the states and 140 crore people under one omnipotent and omnipresent central government. The danger ahead is centralism, as we have in some countries. Let me caution the people, if that day dawns, it will be the end of federalism. Defense and security. Contradicting the Prime Minister's statement on June 19, 2020, there is abundant evidence that Chinese troops have encroached into Indian-held territory and occupy it even today. The Chinese are furiously building defense infrastructure like roads, outposts, as well as new settlements along the border. More Chinese troops have been positioned on the India-China border. The reach of Indian patrols has been curtailed since the clashes in the Galwan Valley in June 2020. It appears that China has not yielded an inch in the numerous rounds of talks at different levels. The initial demand of the government of India to restore the status quo ante as on May 5, 2020, has been cast aside and forgotten. Besides, the China-Pakistan axis has become stronger and the security threat has spread to every part of our border in the west, north, and east. Our relations with Pakistan are more fraught than ever before. Parliament is in the dark about the actual situation and has not been allowed to debate the security threats to the country. Economy. The economy is growing modestly at a much reduced pace. We are compelled to raise very serious questions about raging unemployment, persistent inflation, widening inequalities, and stumbling welfare programs. The All India unemployment rate is currently 7.45%, and the labor force participation rate is about 48%. Prices are elevated and people are consuming less. The thoughtless, some would say even foolish, introduction of the rupees 2000 note, which the people shunned, and the mortifying spectacle of withdrawing the note have cast doubt on the integrity and stability of India's currency. Key economic indicators are pointing downward, and there is low confidence that the economy will reach the high growth path. The first 3 quarters of 22-23 recorded growth rates of 13.2, 6.3, and 4.4, a declining trend. The present situation is a far cry from the average of 9% growth that marked the boom years between 2004 and 2009. Social conflict and divisions. None believes that under the NDA government, India lives up to the lofty constitutional objectives of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Social strife, communal conflict, intolerance, hate, fear, and deep divisions among the people mar our lives every day. Freedom of speech and expression of citizens has been severely curbed through intimidation and slapping false cases. The BJP and or its affiliated organizations have fueled these trends with hyper-nationalism, vigilantism, religious intolerance, vandalism, hate speeches, and extrajudicial actions. Bulldozer justice has replaced natural justice. We are pained and shocked that the leadership of the NDA government has remained silent while the situation in the country has deteriorated year after year. The alarming situation in Manipur, the over 75 deaths, and the continued silence of the Prime Minister illustrate my statement. Inflation, unemployment, inequality, and poverty knock on the door of any average family. They will tell you how their lives have been blighted by persistent inflation and acute scarcity of jobs, and how they watch while the wealth of a few thousand people grew by leaps and bounds even during the COVID-affected period and thereafter, and how there are large and visible pockets of poverty and deprivation all over the country. The growing inequality between the super rich and the poor has exposed the skewed economic policies of the NDA government. There are 169 billionaires in India today, even as 22.4 crore people, 16% of the population, are poor according to the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index. The outcome of the Karnataka elections demonstrated how wrong the Prime Minister, his government, and his party were in their assessment of the political and social situation of the state. Governance and policies in a secular democratic country must give rise to a tide that will lift all boats. In that view, the NDA government has totally failed in the last 9 years. What is worse is that the government does not even make an effort to correct its mistakes and govern for all the people. It is our duty as an opposition party to raise these issues, and I'm happy I have the opportunity to do so in Mumbai. I'm ready to take questions.
You mentioned about this 2000. So I have two questions regarding first is after you given a briefing about inequality. So as an opposition, do you agree with the RBI's briefing? And if not, what is your opposition stand on this? And secondly, they mentioned that it has cast doubt on the integrity and stability of India's currency. So how do you see global ramifications of this?
We totally disagree with the RBI's explanation. RBI gave two reasons. The first reason was it was necessary to introduce the 2,000 rupee note to meet the immediate requirements of the people. But within 15 days or 30 days of the 2,000 rupee note, nobody was using the 2,000 rupee note. No shopkeeper was accepting it. No service provider was accepting it. And in fact, if the bank cashier gave you 2,000 rupee note, Most people returned it and said, no, I don't want the 2,000 rupee note, give me 100 rupee notes. So the people did not want 2,000 rupee note, which is why 50% of the 2,000 rupee notes remains in the vaults of the bank. It didn't even come to the people. People did not accept it. The second reason is even more amusing. The second reason is the shelf life of a 2,000 rupee note is 4 to 5 years. If a 2,000 rupee note, which does not change hands more than once a day, if the shelf life is 5 years, what is the shelf life of a 100 rupee note? What is the shelf life of a 50 rupee note? What is the shelf life of a 20 rupee note, which changes hands 100 times a day? So what do? Old notes are taken back and new notes. Why do you withdraw it? It is a complete failure. It was a foolish move. And why I say the integrity of the currency system is in question is, tell me any other country which has introduced a 2,000 rupee note or a $2,000 note or a 2,000 pound note and withdrawn it. Which country has demonetized in the last 50 years? Which country has issued currencies and taken it back? As far as I know, in America, the $100 note has been there for 100 years. The British pound, 50 pound, has been there for over 100 years. So every reason given by the RBI is a foolish reason because they don't want to admit that the original decision to introduce the 2,000 rupee note was a foolish decision. Yeah, go ahead. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you.
She's again talking about 5 million economic activity. So do you think is it physical, especially in unemployment?
Unemployment today, all India rate today is 7.45%. Urban rate is higher. Urban rate is closer to 8%. In the age group 18 to 34, the unemployment rate is 25%. Now, all this is data collected in the cities and towns. But if you go deeper into India, into the hinterland, into the remote villages, the unemployment is higher because there is no other employment except agriculture. And if agriculture does not throw up jobs, agriculture does not give you a job 12 months a year. When there is no agriculture work, everybody in the village is unemployed. Therefore, this government has no plan to tackle unemployment. They promised, remember, 2 crore jobs a day. And at one point, the Prime Minister said, even pakora flying is a job. So from 2 crore jobs, he came down to pakora making. This government has no plan to tackle unemployment, and it has failed, and it will continue to fail in the 10th year. See, it's a serious issue. A serious issue, the most serious issue in this country is a security issue posed by China. But believe me, for 3 years, we have not been allowed to debate it in Parliament. The 1962 war was debated in Parliament. The 1965 war was debated in Parliament. The 1971 war was debated in Parliament. This is the first security threat which has not been debated in Parliament because the government does not allow a debate at all. The worst thing happened was when the Prime Minister made a statement on June 19, 2020, I will quote the statement. There are no foreign troops in Indian territory, and no part of Indian territory is occupied by foreign troops. Every day, newspapers publish satellite pictures. Chinese are on our side and on their side. They are building fortifications. They are building helipads, airports, settlements, barracks. They are amassing troops. And our patrols, there was a paper presented in a conference in Delhi about 3 months ago. A senior police officer presented a paper which was on the website of the government of India, but it was pulled out the next day. What did the paper say? That we are no longer patrolling 16 to 20 areas which were used to be patrolled. It's a serious issue. Remember, Prime Minister does not even utter the word China. He doesn't even mention the word China. And look at the earlier statements of Prime Minister and the earlier statements of Mr. Jaishankar. Mr. Jaishankar talks about disengagement and withdrawal. But if the Prime Minister is right that no Chinese troops are in Indian territory, what is the disengagement and withdrawal? What are you withdrawing from? There are no Chinese troops according to the Prime Minister. So let the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister first have a public conversation on television. It is a serious issue. We are extremely unhappy that Parliament has not debated the security situation in 3 years.
So even in that case, unless it feels that you should bring it to the people, even if it is the most biggest issue in the country.
See, we must debate it in Parliament first. That is the place to debate it. We can't debate security issues in street corner meetings. We can eventually take it at the election time. But we must debate it in Parliament. There must be 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours of debate. Every party must be allowed to ask questions and the government must answer. We are not allowed to. That is the problem, which is why I'm raising this today. Of the top 5 issues, in my view, security is one of the 5 issues. Yes, please, please.
9 years. You are having so many issues. He is not bothered. He is not bothered. So what is your new strategy? He is not attending Parliament. You are letting to get out this ministry. You will be printed in all the syllabus tomorrow. That is your problem. But he is not making your functions. What is your strategy? How you will take on money?
So the Prime Minister has scant respect for Parliament. He does not intervene in any. What do you want us to
stand there?
The only thing we can do is to take it to the people, raise the issue before the people, and at the election time, ask them to vote. That is all we can do. I can do another thing in a lighter vein. I can recruit you as our strategic advisor. In a democracy, the opposition can only raise. In a democracy, the opposition can only raise its voice. Now, people thought in Karnataka, the BJP government cannot be defeated. We raised our voice. Both Siddaramaiah, who is now Chief Minister, and D.K. Shivkumar, who is now Deputy Chief Minister, raised their voice. They've been raising their voice for the last 1.5 years. Eventually, the people listen. I agree with you entirely. The people did not listen to us in 2019. But we are hoping that if we continue to raise our voice, people will listen to us in 2024. That's the only way to bring about change in a democracy. There's no other way. Just a minute. Let's give a round and then we'll come back. No problem. Yes.
In your opening statement, you made a remark on the role of governors in the attack on the federal structure. We have seen a Supreme Court judgment wherein Delhi versus the LG, there was a Supreme Court clear judgment. And on the other side, now the government has issued an ordinance contradicting the same. So, sir, a clear stand of Congress party, whether it will be in for against the ordinance, supporting Mr. Kejriwal, or the other way around.
See, that is a question I cannot answer. That is a question which the Congress leadership has to answer. It is not a question of supporting Kejriwal or not supporting Kejriwal. Irrespective of who is the Chief Minister of Delhi, who is the Home Minister of India, irrespective of that, the question I'm raising is it correct, given Article 239AA, is it correct that despite two judgments of the Supreme Court, the power should be in the LG's hands?